So there's been a lot of speculation when it comes to Adrian Newey and, his kind of role at Aston Martin. Of course, he's got that defined role as a shareholder, a board member, and also the head of the design team. He's effectively going to be the guy that's designing the car for 2025. Or is he? Well, in principle, potentially, he could be someone who actually does work on the 2025 car, and I've got an article here that does suggest that's going to be the case. Now, the last I heard about this was pretty recently when a source, was it Alonso? I think it might have been Alonso. Someone in Aston Martin anyway basically said that, look, Adrian's joining us in March to start his new role because that's when he's been released by Red Bull officially. And at that point, he will start to work on the 25 car for a bit. But by April, so like a month into him actually starting, he will be working exclusively on the 2026 car. That's kind of what was more than suggested. But let's have a look at this article here, guys, because it's saying that he's going to work on the 2025 car, the current car as well, which a lot of people think might be a bit of a bad idea. But, points win prizes, and if you can get things now, it could benefit you later on as well, even with a completely clean slate in terms of the regulations in 2026. So let's have a look, guys. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always. Other team members are not backing Fernando Alonso's claim that success will certainly not come for F1 team Aston Martin in 2025. Since a solid start to the 2023 campaign and comprehensive team infrastructure investment ever since, the ambitious Silverstone-based team's in-season car development notably stagnated over the past 18 months. I'd say regressed rather than stagnated potentially, but to stand still in Formula 1 is to move backwards as well, so it's hard to tell. Certainly not in 2025, Alonso recently told DAZN when asked if he can be a race winner and title contender again. The cars will be the same as last year, and it will be practically impossible for us to make such a big jump. Hopefully it will be better than in 2024, but we will not win the championship. There are changes coming in the regulations, and Adrian Newey will start working on the 2026 project from April. However, departed Red Bull technical guru Newey has now told Automotor und Sport that he will actually be working on the 2025 car once he starts work at the team in March. I will be focused on 2026, he confirmed, but Lawrence Stroll will definitely want me to be involved a bit with the 25 car. Whether I can really contribute something this year or not, I have no idea until I start. New team boss Andy Cowell, meanwhile, is notably more optimistic than Alonso about the coming season. Can we win the World Championship in 2025, he said. Who thinks we can? Nobody. Well, look at what McLaren did. That's very true. So why can't we? Some differences there, but I take his point. The big difference, of course, being that 26, it's not, it's a clean slate again. You don't really want to put all your emphasis on 25, but, he makes a fair point there. Newey, however, warns that all the well-financed teams have basically maxed out the full potential of their existing ground effect car concepts ahead of the final season of the current regulations. He says the top four teams, McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes, all look like potential race winners this season. It's a clear sign that we have come pretty close to the limit, Newey explained. Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur agrees with this. There are no longer any upgrades that provide more than 4 or 5 points of usable downforce. Some interesting points there for sure. We don't know how long he's going to work on the 25 car. That's the thing, right? Both what Alonso said and also what Newey has said as well could be true. He could well work, 50-50 on 25 and 26 in the first month. And then in April, it could be 80-20 towards 2026. And depending on how the car is performing, if the car is just not very good, basically, if they've got no kind of hope of improving it, or if they are solidly in fifth again. They were miles off the top four, but they also were never truly under threat from the teams behind last season. And that's because relatively they had a good start to the season. It was not a good start to the season. Let me just say that. Relatively compared to what came after, it was a good start to the season, and they got that gap and they maintained it just. So, they ended the season with what Alonso described as the 9th fastest car, the slowest car on the grid apart from the Saubers, who were well and truly backmarkers in 2024. So what they've all said could be true. What they said could be true. Despite what Cowell says, there's no chance they're being champions this year. Like Alonso says, he's been in Formula 1 probably longer than Cowell has. I don't know how long Cowell's been in Formula 1, but Alonso's been in F1 since 2001. Since, you know, there's a decent chunk of the grid in terms of the drivers that were born after that now. That's how long Alonso's been going. His career is literally older than quite a few drivers. The Behrmans, the Colapintos, certainly the Antonellis. He was born when I started going to high school, I think, which makes me feel old. Yeah, so I mean, look, it's one of them really. You know, I feel like they're all kind of telling the truth in a way that sounds like they're contradicting each other, but it doesn't really if you think about it. So I think it could be true. Because at the end of the day, right, say what you want about Lawrence Stroll, say what you want about the guy. He isn't an idiot, right? He knows what he's doing when it comes to this sort of stuff. He's not just going to hire Newey and just be like, you know what, mate? You need to work on a 25 car. I need money. I need points to fund my exercises and stuff like that in Formula 1. We need points now. We need to do this. They would not cut off their nose to spite their face. That's a very old English idiom. You guys probably don't understand what that means. They wouldn't do something that's a detriment to themselves, effectively. You know, they just wouldn't make it. They wouldn't shoot themselves in the foot. That's one you guys probably know. You know, so I don't see them doing that. I feel like they would work pretty much exclusively on the 26 car after a certain point in the season, and that point in the season will probably be early on in the kind of cycle of things for the year. What I would say as well when it comes to that, the development, what do you call it, the developmental alleyway. I think that's the term. I'm probably making that up, but basically what it means is that there is a law of diminishing returns when it comes to the improvements of the cars, and because these regulations have remained pretty much static, they've barely changed since 2022. So this will be the 4th year in a row where the regulations have fundamentally almost not changed. And I know there's a big regulation shift anywhere between 5 and 10 years, but in that time usually you do get some big changes. I mean, think about the V6 era, right at the start, the anteater noses that they had on the front of the cars, the hood ornaments, as I call them, the appendages, you know, those were thankfully destroyed within a couple seasons. So, you know, you had big changes like that. There's not been one, to my knowledge. There's not been I know there's been things that have affected stuff like the asymmetric brakes for Red Bull, the mini DRS for McLaren, but relatively when you think about regulations, that's not huge. You know, there's not been a system like there has been with Mercedes, like they were in the previous regulations. So yeah, so what would then be required for Aston Martin to challenge for the championship, in my opinion, would be a complete overhaul, because there's a fundamental base design to that Aston Martin, and that just doesn't work. It worked at the start in 2023, but since then they have just been developing it and trying to make it better, and it just has not worked. So they would need to tear up the old car effectively, start again, and they can't do that because even with Newey coming in March, the car's going to be on track in Melbourne in, like, what was it, the 16th of March, the first race? Something like that. So it's got like 2 weeks. Newey's good. He ain't that good, though. He can't make a car in 2 weeks and make it very competitive. Well, maybe he can. But they wouldn't do that because it's too much of a risk. So those are my thoughts on it, guys. I love this whole development race. I love the technical and engineering side of Formula 1. I mean, hey, that's why I went to university. That's why I studied to be an engineer. And that's why I like talking about this sort of stuff now, you know, because it is my interest. This is part of the reason why I love Formula 1 in general too. But yeah, this has gone on for a while. I do apologise for that. But it's a very complicated issue, and I just wanted to get my thoughts out when it comes to this. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts? Let us know in the comments below. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You know how it works here. See you soon for some more F1 news and opinions on the world of Formula 1. Just like this, guys. Have a good one.